Laravel Facade is one of the most discussed topic, and people have different opinion about facades. Some people like it and some don't. I also want to hear your thoughts about facades. So please share what you think about facade in the comment section. In this video, I am going to show you what are facades and how you can create your facades. And we are also going to implement our own implementation of facade to understand how facades work in the Laravel code base. So let's start. Hello everyone, welcome to our channel. My name is Harish Kumar. Today's topic is Laravel Facade. According to the documentation, Facade provides a static interface to classes that are available in the application's service container. What is the meaning of that? Let me show you. So let's go to the editor. Here I have already created a fresh Laravel application. Let's say here we have some services. So in the app I will create a new service class. So let's say in the services directory we have some service example.php, and let's start PHP namespace is app services, and let's say this class has a method do something. Now here let's say just return done. Now let's go to routes web.php. Here let's remove this comment. Now here to execute this method, what we will generally do, first let's initialize $service is equal to new some service example class, and now here we can say $service do something like this. Let's dump this. Let's go to browser. So first PHP artisan serve, and let's open this URL. This do method is a regular method. So can you execute this statically like a static method? So you don't have to initialize this class. Let's see. So I'm going to comment it here and some service class, and then I'm going to call this do something like this. Now what will happen? If we go to browser and refresh, and we will get error non-static method do something cannot be called statically, because it is not a static method. And that is what facade does. A facade is a static interface for a class. It allows to call non-static method statically. Let me show you an example of inbuilt facade. So let's remove this, and let's say here we have config facade, this one, illuminate support facade config, and you can also see that illuminate support facades route. Here we are calling get method statically. Let's see config facade as well. So here we can call config, and then we can call static method get like this. Then we can pass the key for configuration that we want to get. Let's say app.name. Let's dump this. Let's go to browser, refresh, and here we get Laravel. And if we see this config facade class, this config facade has only one static method, that is get facade accessor, and it extends facade class. Let's see this, and here in this class we cannot see a get method that we have called statically right here. So from where this get method was executed, and here we can see in the doc block we have get method, and if we see this config repository class right here, we should have get method, and that is the method which was called statically right here, and you can see it is a non-static method. And now you understand what is facade. It provides a static interface for the class, And remember that this facade has created the instance of config repository class from the service container. If you do not know about service container, then you should watch my previous video on service container. In that video, I have explained service container in detail. Basically, service containers help us manage application dependencies. And in this facade, you can see here we have a static method which returns a string config. That is the key which has stored the instance of this class in this service container. Let me show you. So here, if I dump this app, and this app has stored the all applications dependencies, and in this app helper I will pass this config key. Now go to browser, refresh, and you can see here we get instance of eliminate config repository class from the service container. Now let's create a facade for this some service example class, so we can call do something method statically. So our first step is to register this class in the service container. So let's go to app service provider, and in the register method here I'll say $this app bind, and then I'll provide bind key, let's say some service. Next I'll pass a closure function, and it is going to return new some service example class. Is done. Now let's create a some service example facade. So here some service example facade.php. Let's copy all of this content and paste it here, and its name is some service example facade. And this some service example facade should extend facade, this one eliminate support facades facade, and this facade should have a static method protected static function get facade accessor, and that should return a key that we have used in the service container binding, some service like this. Now let's go to web.php right here. Now we can call this do something method statically. Let's see. So here I will call some service example facade. Now call do something. Let's go to browser, refresh, and it worked. It has executed do something method from the some service example, which is non-static method, but we have called it statically. How cool is that? So what here we did, first we bind the class in the service container, and then we created a some service example facade that extends eliminate support facade from the Laravel application. And this facade should have a static method get facade accessor, and it should return a key that we have used to bind class in the service container, this one. Now it is not necessary that you have to bind a class in the service container to create a facade. So if I comment this and refresh, of course we will get error because this key does not exist in the service container. So in the facade here I will return some service example class. It is going to work. That is because if you have watched the previous lesson on service container, then you know the service container has a feature auto resolving dependency. So from this get facade accessor, if I return this some service example class, service container going to auto resolve this dependency. Now so let's see, let's go to browser, refresh, and it worked. We don't have to create binding for this class. Now what if this some service example has a dependency as well? So let's create a construct method public function construct, and this construct has a dependency, let's say string $secret key protected $secret key $this secret key is equal to. Now this time let's refresh and it will fail because Laravel does not know how to resolve this string secret key. In that case we need to register this binding. So let's uncomment this binding, and here this some service example need a dependency of secret key. So let's pass some random string like this, and next in this some example facade, here we should return this some service key. Now let's go to browser, refresh, and it works. And this facade has saved these 2 lines of code, and it looks very clean and easy. Facades is very useful, but we have one issue. The text editor is not smart enough to detect all the methods available to us in the original service class. So there won't be any method autocomplete when we use facade. For that, in the facade class we can insert PHP documentation, like this. Now here we should see autocomplete. Here we go. And you may have also seen that for config get app.name, let's dump this. For this config you do not need full class name. We can just say use config and it will work. Here my text editor has not recognized this class, but in the browser it should work. Refresh, and here we get Laravel. How it has worked? If we see config app.php, let's scroll down. Here we have all service provider, and here is the alias. And you can see here we have alias for config, which is alias for eliminate support facades config class. Because of these aliases, we do not need to use full class name. We can just use config and it will work. Similar like that, we can also add a alias for this some service example facade. Let's add this. So in the config app.php, let's scroll down, and right here let's say our alias name is some service, which is going to be alias for app services some service example facade class. Now in the web.php we can call some service, and then we can call do something method statically like this. And we do not need to use this facade. We can just say use some service like this. Now let's go to browser, refresh, we get this Laravel, that is from this config, and here we go, we get done from this do something method. Next, let's create our own implementation of facade to understand how facades are working in Laravel. So let's close all these tabs, and in the app here I'll create a new file. Let's say this is facade.php. Namespace is app, next class is facade, and this facade class going to have a public static function call static. This call static method is a PHP magic method, and it automatically calls every time if we execute a static method that does not exist in this class. For example, in the web.php, let's comment this all this, and here if I dump facade, let's say any static method which does not exist, and make sure to import this app facade. And right now this any method does not exist in this class. So it will automatically call this call static method. First, let's remove call static to make sure it gives an error. Call to undefined method any. Now if I add this call static, and here I am going to dump this $name, refresh, and you can see the method name, this one. If I say something else, and now it should be something. So let's say it is method name, and it is going to catch all the arguments we passed in this method. Let's say 1, 2, 3, and it should see array of 1, 2, 3. Now to implement our own facade, here in this call static, I'm going to resolve the class from the container. For example, let's dump app and then key. For example, let's say config, which is going to dump the config repository class from the service container. Refresh. Here we go. Similarly, like from the app service provider, we have registered this some service, and it will give some service example class that we have bind in the service provider. So here what I will do, let's say $instance is equal to app, and in this app method I will pass static get facade accessor, and it will give the instance from the service container, and then we can say return instance, and we can call this method dynamically like this, and we can pass these arguments using spread operators. And next, let's create this get facade accessor right here, protected static function get facade accessor like this. Here we can throw exception for get facade accessor override. For now, let's leave it empty. And that is all. Our facade is created. So next, in the some service example facade, now here I am going to extend this some service example facade with our own custom facade implementation. So let's comment this, and here I'll say use app facade, and in the web.php, here we can say some service example facade do something, and it should work. And here we go, it is working. Our custom facade is working. Now let's see the Laravel's implementation of facade. So let's go to this eliminate support facade class. Here in this facade class, we can also see that it has call static method, similar like our custom facade. And here you can also see that it is getting the instance from the get facade root, which is also behind the scene getting the instance of a class from the service container, and is doing extra check if this instance does not exist, and then throw an exception. Otherwise, execute this method, same as we did right here. Laravel also provide a very cool feature, that is real-time facade. It is even more easy to use. Using this feature, you may use any class of your application as if it is a facade. Let's see an example of it. So let's say you have a class example.php, namespace app, and class example, and it has method, let's say process, and it just returns processing. Now let's go to web.php. Now right here, let's call this process method statically. So example and then process like this. Of course, if we go to browser, it will give error because we are calling non-static method statically. So to implement real-time facade, I will add a word facades to the beginning of this namespace like this, facades, and that's all we need. And it has worked. We have not created any facade for this example class. We have just added facades word in the beginning of this namespace. And that is how it is simple to create real-time facade. Behind the scene, what Laravel does, it creates a facade for this class in the storage, framework, cache, and here is the facade class. Example, and in the get facade accessor, it returns the class with its namespace. How cool is that? This is the end of this lesson. I hope it was easy to understand how facade works in Laravel. If you like the video, hit the like button, share this video, and don't forget to subscribe us. See you in the next lesson.